Today on Talking Solutions, we've got Doug Bennett in from the Southern Nevada Water Authority, Conservation Manager.
Yes, still.
We've got you on public service announcements giving us good common sense approaches to our water use. I believe, and I was explaining this to my mom out of state, how here in Southern Nevada, when the water allocations were distributed as far as the Colorado River water, was it 20s, 30s?
Yeah, the mid-1920s.
We were not an agricultural state. We're still not an agricultural state. And we were really small as far as our population.
Right, 5,000 people.
Yeah, and we've exploded. But as far as the allocations, we don't get any more. That's already been portioned out. So we don't get a lot of water. We've had an incredible increase in our population. But I really love celebrating the fact that Southern Nevadans are so good in our water usage. We know we don't have a lot, but we make the best of what we have. And I would love to celebrate some of the things that we do well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't realize, but of all the water allocated on the Colorado River, Southern Nevada gets 1.8%. So there's this erroneous perception that somehow if Lake Mead goes down and Las Vegas being so nearby, that there's a perception that Las Vegas is having that impact on Lake Mead, and that's not the case at all. We get a tiny fraction of the Colorado River supply, but we have done an awful lot as a community to manage that supply effectively. You know, I have to pat Southern Nevadans on the back. Henderson, North Las Vegas, Boulder City, unincorporated Clark County, all of the jurisdictions have done a tremendous job at conserving water. And in fact, today, what used to take us 100 gallons to get done, we're now doing with 65 gallons of water. So 35% reduction there. We're using 40% less Colorado River water. And that water we save, we're banking away for future use. So tremendous benefit. You really do have to applaud the community's response. They're doing a great job.
I think the numbers that I heard the last time we had you in for a discussion about our water usage here in Southern Nevada was that the water inside our house that we are able to capture and recover and reprocess, 92% or some huge amount of that?
Yeah, virtually all of it. Obviously, the sewer system may lose a little bit of water in the process, but any water that goes down a drain is going to be captured at one of the reclamation facilities, and we can recover that to our water supply. And so we have literally a self-perpetuating supply of water for indoor uses. But I don't want people to run around and say it's okay to shower as long as you want. I can flush a cigarette butt. It doesn't matter. The indoor conservation is important too because it helps us get the most out of these enormously expensive facilities that we need to supply this community. And it also helps us get the most out of our energy dollar. We want to be able to serve the most number of people at the lowest cost, and that means stretching infrastructure and energy use.
Doug Bennett is with us, Conservation Manager for Southern Nevada Water Authority, talking about water bills, how they're different around Southern Nevada. And you'd mentioned something that I hadn't really thought about it before. We see all of these cute little spots that are the Southern Nevada Water Authority encouraging us to be very mindful in the way that we use our water resources. But there are other, do I say districts? I mean, We've got the Las Vegas Valley Water District, so it's not just SNWA.
Well, everybody together, all those organizations you mentioned, the city of Henderson, the city of North Las Vegas, Boulder City, every agency in Southern Nevada that provides water or wastewater service came together to create the Southern Nevada Water Authority. So the challenges on the Colorado River, the challenges of our fast-growing community back in the late 80s and the early 90s couldn't really be addressed by those agencies individually. And they realized that we're much stronger if we all pulled together. So they did pull together and they created the Southern Nevada Water Authority. The Southern Nevada Water Authority does not send you a water bill. The city of Henderson or the Las Vegas Valley Water District would take care of that. We call them the purveyors. They provide the service, but all of those agencies collaborating together is the Southern Nevada Water Authority. And so people presumably like that when government agencies work together. We don't just draw a line and say, that's a problem on your side of the street, not on my side. We're all sharing this same resource, and we're much more effective at negotiating, at collaborating with other states, at influencing federal policy. That all can be better done with a stronger voice through the regional organization.
Sure, yes, and we definitely are stronger together. So SNWA is kind of like the umbrella over all of the different water districts.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. We talked before about how sometimes the pricing is slightly different depending on where you live. So that's what that is, and SNWA is the umbrella over the top.
Right.
I believe you have some things that have been implemented since the last time we visited, taking Sunday off.
Right. we were always looking for ways that we can further advance conservation. The community's done a bunch. Obviously, there are an awful lot of regulatory measures. There are a lot of voluntary programs. We've really pushed on every front. Education. The Springs Preserve is a great place to go learn new things. So we pushed on every front, but we were looking for what else can be done in a reasonable fashion. And one of the things we looked at was, can we strengthen the watering restrictions? And we found through research that many people were already skipping a day, but not all people. A significant number were still watering 7 days a week. And we found of those people that do skip a day, the vast majority of them chose to skip Sunday. It was the most commonly skipped day. And so we're asking the community this summer to take Sunday off. And it's a voluntary measure this summer, but it's going to be proposed as a mandatory measure in 2017. And so we want people to try it, experiment with it. Among my own staff, I have 20 staff members. I think about 6 or 7 of us have a little bit of grass in our lawns, and we've cut out that Sunday watering. And you remember, I think it was the end of June, maybe mid-June, we had those 114-degree days.
Oh, and so forth. I remember that.
And to a person, every single one of those individuals went through that period, skipped Sunday, and didn't see any adverse effect. We find that through our research that most people who skip a day, their lawns look similar or equivalent to people that water 7 days a week. So we're going to ask people to skip Sunday this summer, and then we're going to require Sundays to be skipped with adoption in 2017. We're expecting that could save us close to 1 billion gallons of water every year.
That's significant.
And if it can be done without harming the landscape, you can still have a green, successful lawn for those that choose to have a lawn. That's what we want to do. It's a learning process, turning up the dial a little bit, tweaking a little bit, and seeing where we go.
We do make the most of our water resources here.
Well, we still have a ways to go. I mean, all of us. I think every day, probably on your way to work here, you probably drove through some water. I know I did.
I don't believe I did today.
Good for you.
Maybe we've made some advancement in that area, but I do know what you're talking about.
We made huge advancements. I mean, you think about 15 years ago, literally the streets around here ran like rivers and streams. And so we've made tremendous advancements, but there's still room for progress. And so it's important that those of us that already embrace these concepts try to influence those that are still resistant to them. There's still people living in homes that don't realize that it's not still 1985. And so in some cases, people haven't changed anything at all. But generally speaking, the vast majority of us have changed our water use and still maintain a good quality of life.
Are you still benefiting homeowners who take out grass?
Absolutely. We even ramped that up since the last time you and I spoke. You know, the cost of everything goes up. Very few things are coming down in price. And we realize that the cost of landscaping is going up, but also the cost of water has gone up. And we've bumped up our landscape conversion program to $2 per square foot. We had been offering $1.50 per square foot. We find through our surveys that the average homeowner will pay about $5 per square foot to make the conversion. So we're paying about 40% of the average cost. If you're an aggressive do-it-yourselfer, you may be able to go and do the project yourself for just the materials and your own sweat equity. And sometimes people get those projects done for the rebate alone.
That explains why my hairstylist was so excited. He was showing me pictures on his smartphone last week when I saw him, how they pulled up the grass and they replaced it with artificial turf. So it's very green and beautiful, all there in the front lawn of their house over at Desert Shores. And he said they ended up pulling up 550 square feet. So what, they get $1,100 or something for that?
Oh, yeah. If they applied to the program, they would. One thing that's important with artificial turf, though, is we want living plants in the landscape. You know, we got to fend off the urban heat island effect. All of us love birds and other living creatures, and they have to have a place to be. And so we don't necessarily want to go to an all artificial landscape or a moonscape of rocks. We want living plants. We want efficient irrigation in there. So if you're going to use artificial turf, what's important is that you mingle that artificial turf project with living plant material as well. And my staff can help you, consult with you, explain how to do these projects that may have some of these artificial features in them and still be able to meet the minimum qualifications for the rebate.
All of those details would be available at snwa.com?
Absolutely. And in fact, if when you apply, we send somebody out to the house to meet with you, take some photos, answer questions, they can give you more specific information about the project you're talking about.
Ken, at his house, also has the bushes that he trims all up. He does have a mixture of different plant life, but he was very proud of it.
Well, that's great. The plants are vitally important to the urban area. So we don't want people to believe that just simply eliminating water use is where we're going. What we're trying to do is get the greatest value from the water that we use.
I think we do pretty well. But you say that we can always do better. One of the things is these new smart controllers.
Yeah, they've been around for years. In fact, I think back in 2002, we were instrumental on a national level at trying to get the big manufacturers to make these smarter devices. So for a very long time, a controller was really just, I don't even want to call it a computer. It was a device that you told what days to water, how long to water, etc., and it just did that routinely. It had no brain. It couldn't make decisions based on data. You had to go out and push the buttons. Nobody wanted to mess with it. It was a horrible thing. But now everything's smart. Some of your listeners have smart thermostats.
Yes, those are cool.
Monitoring when they're home or not, or that they can turn up the temperature while they're away from home or turn it down or whatever, letting them know that people are in the house, all kinds of crazy stuff. We almost all have smartphones in our pockets now. In fact, I saw a picture the other day of some of my fourth grade relatives on their smartphone. Fourth graders.
And they've got them because they need them.
Sure they do. And so everybody's connected now. Why not your irrigation controller? And obviously, they've been around for a long time. They got some fabulous features, but people kind of balked at paying $250 for this device to go in the garage and run their irrigation. Now, some of the manufacturers are offering these kinds of features, smartphone capability, for as little as $100. And I have a program where I'm going to give you $50 of that back.
Bonus.
So we've changed that program. It used to require you to go to one of the participating retailers. Now, if you go to either a participating retailer, you can get an instant discount. No forms, no mailing, nothing. But if you go to a big box store and they don't participate, you can still fill out a form, mail it to us, and we'll mail you a check in a couple of weeks.
So it doesn't matter where you get your smart controller, you can still get the benefit of like $50
Absolutely.
back.
And if you're wondering which controllers qualify, we have a complete list. So if you just go to SNWA.com, go to the search function, type in smart controller, you can see a complete list of qualifying products. These things come out all the time. I mean, there's already dozens and dozens of smart controllers there. But if you see a product that you think should qualify and it's not on that list, give us a call. We're adding new products all the time.
SNWA.com. Doug Bennett, Conservation Manager for Southern Nevada Water Authority. Today on Talking Solutions. I just had someone in from NV Energy yesterday. We got to talking about some of the water features on the Strip that always get commented on. And I'm sure you never hear the end of Bellagio fountains. And then, of course, Steve Wynn has announced some plans up where the DI golf course, putting in this big lake that can be
lagoon,
used.
he's calling it.
Yeah. So people are, I'm sure, constantly going, how can you possibly, in a desert, do that? She was talking about how, to her understanding, it would take less water than the golf course that currently exists there.
Yeah, and those are the opportunities that we should look for. It's very difficult because of perception. The Strip in and of itself is a facade, right? I mean, it's a mirage. It's an oasis. It is a lot of visual imagery, and it can be very difficult to overcome that. But I'd certainly make a distinction between something that's a water attraction and something that's a water feature. So to me, a fountain in front of a gas station that sells fuel and Slurpees is a water feature that purely is ornamental. You look at something like the Bellagio fountains, it's probably the number one attraction in Las Vegas. It's kind of one of the must-sees. They're using their own water supplies under a permit from the state of Nevada, but the economic benefit of that is very different than an ornamental fountain in front of a retail center or something like that. We're able to function without those and still get the job done. So, yeah, there's some mixed feelings about those kinds of things. The Wynn golf course obviously requires a significant amount of water. Actually, they remodeled that golf course. They changed the layout of it, and they improved the irrigation system. So Wynn has already made improvements to increase the efficiency of that golf course. And now he's turning around and proposing replacing several holes, I think as many as 9 holes, with this lagoon. And with the other amenities being built around that area, we're also projecting it's probably going to evaporate less water than was required to maintain the golf course. So yeah, it's a dichotomy, right? How can you build a lagoon and be saving water, but you have to look at what service was that water providing before? And it was providing 9 holes of golf, and he's looking at moving that to a different type of attraction that he thinks will serve even more people than the golf course was.
Well, you know that Las Vegas constantly changes. People come back for another visit. There's something different on the Strip, so that's how we do it. That's a very interesting thing to keep in mind. And also, the fact that the hotels, by being very water efficient inside their properties in the water that they use for their guests and handling, processing all of the linens that they use, they've gotten really, really good at doing that. They have cut down their water usage so much that it lessens the impact They can use that water resource in a different way.
You know, I wasn't born here in Southern Nevada. I moved here in 2000, and I was awestruck by the Strip. I had only been to Las Vegas on a short visit once before in my life before moving here, and I was one of those people going down 15 with my mouth hanging open, looking at the gigantic signs and so forth. And I came here with a lot of preconceived notions of what was being done with water and what the challenges were and what was wasting water. And through information, I found out that I was wrong on a lot of counts. So we now know that some of these mega resorts that have 3,000 to 5,000 rooms in them on a per room basis use less water than a typical chain motel that you might encounter in a small town anywhere in the United States. Because they're so big, they're so aggressively managed, these economies of scale mean they use less water per guest. It's also beneficial that they have great occupancy rates. The top hotels in the city are typically more than 90% occupied.
Right.
Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a lot of people in that hotel. We also found things like swimming pools, water features, landscaping on a per guest basis are much smaller than they are at a traditional chain hotel that you might see in any town in USA. All that information completely changed my perspective. We look at the resort sector now and we realize because we're most concerned about consumptive use, evaporating water, that means we're worried about open water surfaces, landscaping, right? Water's evaporating from that. And the big ticket item is air conditioning, cooling towers. Taking heat out of those buildings is one of the biggest evaporative water uses. But when we look at all those issues in the resort sector, they're using less than 3% of our water resource. And for the economic benefit they produce, I can't think of a better investment for such a tiny fraction of our water supplies.
Economy of scale.
Oh, absolutely. The bigger the building, the more rooms in it, and the more occupied there are, the more value you're getting out of the water that goes into that facility.
Better for all of us here in Southern Nevada.
Right? Big job machine.
It's Doug Bennett, the Conservation Manager for Southern Nevada Water Authority. We're talking about evaporation. Pool covers. Is that still something SNWA is actively trying to encourage pool owners to have?
Absolutely. That is not a perfect program, I guess, from the pool owner's perspective. We will give you a 50% rebate on your pool cover, but we only do it once every 3 years. We're asking the pool owners to please take care of the pool cover. I mean, it's just a big sheet of plastic bubble wrap kind of stuff, right? If you take care of it, you can usually get several seasons out of it. If you wad it up in a big ball and leave it out exposed on the side of the house, it might only last 1 or 2 seasons. So you can only get that rebate every 3 years. We're just trying to show people the benefits of using them. If you leave a pool uncovered, it can literally evaporate almost all of its own water out over the course of a year. So you may be losing several inches a week during the hottest part of the summer. And I want to make an appeal. A pool cover's a little bit of a pain, right? I got to deploy this thing. If I want to swim, I got to get it off. I got to fold it up. This guy wants me to take care of it.
What's
I
that
can't
all
wad
about?
it up, right? It's a little bit of a hassle, but most people don't swim very often, so it's definitely worthwhile. You're saving water, but more importantly, evaporation is what makes your pool cold. Just like when you sweat and the wind blows on you,
all right,
you get chilled. The evaporation of that water is sucking all the heat out of your swimming pool. So there are lots of times during the year where people are actually having to heat their pool so they can get in and swim once a week. If you put a pool cover on, you're going to save a ton of energy. So I appeal to people, if the cover seems like a burden, you're not terribly concerned about water, do it for the energy savings, if nothing else, and bring the water savings along.
Benefits you in a lot of ways, and if you also put into perspective, when you're not evaporating all this extra water, you're not using as much water.
Oh, absolutely.
So your water bills are more manageable, so it's helping you in your pocketbook as well.
Sure, absolutely.
We've talked about some of the things that we do well here in Southern Nevada. What do you think we could do better? Because as part of Talking Solutions, we always say, what can we do to help out this whole effort?
An organization called WaterStart. WaterStart is a center of excellence for water technology. It was funded by the state. It's affiliated with the Desert Research Institute. Southern Nevada Water Authority and a variety of other partners are working with them. And we're looking for new technologies to bring in. And one of the areas we're really interested in is cooling. So I just explained the biggest evaporative use of water in the resort sector is air conditioning. And it's invisible. You think a lot about it if it goes away.
Yeah, it's not there,
right?
You miss it a lot.
But when you go into a large building, you're not thinking about how do they make it cool in here? What resources are required? It's a tremendous use of water running through these large cooling towers, and we're very eager to find out what some new technological innovations may be that can be deployed there. So again, maybe not appealing to the homeowner because it doesn't hit home immediately, but evaporative cooling would be one of the places that we're hoping to find new technologies and get them implemented. And we have programs for that too. So if you're listening to this program and you're a business owner or a facility manager or you work for the public school system or any organization and you've got some of these large industrial institutional uses, we have a program called Water Efficient Technologies where we will pay you for virtually any water-saving technology on the basis of how much water you can conserve using it. So we don't claim to be experts in every industry. People often come to us with some product we've never heard of before, in some industry we're completely unfamiliar with, and explain to us how this is going to save them millions of gallons of water. We evaluate it, we test it, we prove it up, and we provide them with a rebate so that they can install it.
All of that information, I'm sure, available at SNWA.com.
Absolutely.
We can always make better use of our resources. I would imagine Las Vegas and Southern Nevada in general is pretty much world famous for the way that we manage our very small supply of water.
We've really made a name for ourselves. I think we went from being the poster child of excess to being a poster child of what can be accomplished. By no means are we the lowest water-using community in the nation on a per capita basis, but perhaps we shouldn't be. We're in one of the hottest, driest environments. We have on an average daily basis more than 400,000 people visiting that are not part of our population, not part of those statistics. We're hosting an awful lot of people. So every community is unique, but we have proven to people that we were able to make extraordinary progress in managing our water resources while maintaining a good, vital economy, short of the housing crisis, which didn't have a lot to do with water, and be able to maintain a good quality of life on a smaller water footprint.
It's done well here in Southern Nevada. My husband is always remarking. He'll get the water bill, and he looks and he goes, this is just an amazing bargain. It does not cost us as much as you might imagine.
Right. That is actually part of the challenge. You know, if you're in water conservation, you always want the bill to be higher because it does your work for you. What we really want is a community like we have now where some of these people are on average getting something around a $50 water bill, yet they're still embracing conservation.
Mine's lower.
That's terrific.
I know.
And some are higher. So
well, we don't have a pool, and we are all desert landscaping, so there's certain things I'm sure that help that to be lower.
Right. We want people to be doing it because they think it should be done, not necessarily purely on the cost savings, but different people have different motivations. Sometimes people say, you know what, I want my grandchildren to have the same opportunities I had. That's all the motivation they need. Other times people say, you know what, I want a few more dollars in my wallet. What are you going to give me? What incentives do you have? How much am I going to save? Sometimes it's a financial motivation, and that's important in the business sector. It's always good to make those decisions based on the return on investment. Different people have different motivations, and we try to keep a very diverse program so that we can appeal to all those motivations. Sometimes education alone works for people. Sometimes regulation is necessary for other folks that are running water down the road or wasting water. Sometimes providing the incentives. There's just a variety of methodologies, and you hope that among those 2 million people we serve that something appeals to all of them.
I like the right thing to do kind of approach.
Yeah, it's good, but I have to be the first to admit it's really not for everyone.
I get that. I'm one of those Earth Day girls. I feel guilty because I still haven't started composting on my back patio. I feel that inner motivation.
Well,
I need to do more.
Worm compost. You
I
can
know.
keep it in the house in your utility room in a bin. No, really, it doesn't smell or anything.
I just need to put it somewhere because it's nowhere right now. That's why I'm feeling so guilty.
Terry the vermiculturist.
You should see my Pinterest page. Shows you how to regrow all those organic veggies.
I'm like you in some respects, but not in every respect, perhaps. So a few years back, let's see, it was 2013, and I was buying a car, and I was thinking of going hybrid or electric. I mean, I obviously feel compelled to do those things and save resources, but I'm also one of those people that makes a spreadsheet for everything. So I had all these criteria, gas mileage, fuel mileage, expenses, everything. What's this car cost? What's the return on investment? And I opted instead to buy a high mileage car that got good gas mileage instead of an electric car. And I'm kind of hoping things will mature to the point that my next decision maybe moves me into that arena, but I go back and forth between what makes fiscal sense and what makes emotional sense, what makes social sense, and all those things should play a role.
I agree. And when the pricing goes over that tipping point, the world is going to go crazy with alternative fuel vehicles because people go, it's
and we'll have
so
new challenges.
Exactly.
So we drive electric hybrid cars at the Water Authority, and you've got to have a place to charge them. In your garage is one thing, but when you start doing fleet scale projects, there are additional challenges. So all these new solutions come with some new challenges too.
Doug Bennett is with us, Conservation Manager for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Is there anything that you want to pass along to all of us water consumers?
I was telling you earlier, Terry, we just finished up a study, a national study. Back in 1999, we did this study. It was the biggest and most important study of its kind on how Americans use water inside their home. And the study was actually able to find out all kinds of interesting things, like the average person flushes their toilet in their home 5.1 times per day. All these stats that could be used for us to move our industry forward. And 1999 was a long time ago in terms of technology. So we just finished up another national study finding out how much water goes to which kinds of uses inside the home, and we found some exciting results. So we found out that clothes washers today are using 36% less water to launder a household's clothing than it did 15 years ago.
I've got one of those. HE machine. I love it.
Oh, yeah, and people like them. They're preferred technology that has really succeeded. Toilets, we're flushing 30% less water down the toilet than we were 15 years ago. Dishwashers are using 40% less water than they did 15 years ago. Leaks are even down. We're not completely sure why. Leaks are very erratic. Some houses have them, some houses don't. Some houses have huge leaks, some houses have small leaks, but bright side is leaks look like they're down in this study. One of the interesting things, no change in the average amount of water we're using for showering, nor for bathing. Most households now have efficient shower heads, but what we find is that people are still using 17 gallons of water in the average shower, and we think we may have plateaued in that respect, which is fine. I mean, unless people want to go to an extreme and start taking Navy showers and so forth. So that's good. If you plateau and you feel like you've done all you can do, it means that people are doing what reasonably can be done. But a lot of progress in a lot of areas, and overall indoor use in households has gone down more than 20% in the last 15 years.
So even though we live in a desert, and we should always keep our water use top of mind because it's so important to all of us, should we be concerned at all when we take our tourists out to places like Lake Mead? And they always refer to the bathtub ring, and it seems like it's just at the all-time low level.
It is very low. It's still an enormous reservoir. I mean, it was the largest man-made reservoir in North America. So keeping in mind that scale, even a Lake Mead at 40% capacity is still a pretty enormous body of water. What was important for Southern Nevada was getting our third intake. So our third intake assures that at any level, we're still going to have Southern Nevada's water supply. And there are a lot of exciting things going on in terms of collaboration throughout the 7 states that draw on the Colorado. A lot of exciting projects, banking agreements, incentives for keeping water in the river rather than using it. I think what people should know is that governments are working together to make sure they get the best outcome for everyone who relies on the Colorado. And Southern Nevada is certainly at the forefront of that effort.
Well, there's I would call them doomsayers who say, by 2025, Lake Mead's going to be all dried up, and what will happen to Las Vegas then? That's not actually true, right?
No, most of the water is going to agriculture. And so one of the biggest changes you can make is in revising some of the policies and plans that pertain to agriculture. We really have only gotten started in terms of making efficiency improvements in the agricultural sector. About 3/4 of all the water in the Colorado River goes to agriculture and not to cities. The remaining water is split between cities and industry. So sometimes you'll see mining operations in the middle of nowhere, or energy operations in the middle of nowhere. They may be utilizing some of that water. There's still tremendous potential. We're making tremendous progress, and everybody understands that that's not an outcome that anyone can afford, and I don't think it's anything that our citizens need to be concerned about.
Southern Nevada, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, we are. We're doing a tremendous job on a very tiny fraction of that water.
I don't know that I have any more things that I need to ask. I think all of my curiosity has been satisfied.
People who have questions, you can call us at 258-SAVE. and ask questions about our programs there if you prefer to interact by telephone, or just go to SNWA.com. And there's so much information on our website. I would say if you're confused about where to go, it's an award-winning website. But I frequently just use the little search box and just search landscape or rebate or whatever you're looking for, and it'll take you straight to it.
By the way, if you'd like to hear our discussion, we'll have the podcast and links for all the information on today's talk on our Talking Solutions Facebook page. It's so important to all of us, and it's the sort of thing I think we all need to know. Doug Bennett, the Conservation Manager for the Southern Nevada Water Authority, thanks for coming in to visit.
Always my pleasure.
I wish I was in school.
I wish I was in school.
Summer isn't fun when you're hungry.
Give me a math quiz. I'll stay after class. I'll clean the chalkboard.
I wish I was in school.
If your child relies on free school lunches, we can help provide them with free meals this summer. Together, we're feeding America.
Contact 3 Square Food Bank at www.3square.org. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group, Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.